Hi guys, today I'm going to review the Winsor & Newton Professional Watercolor Lightweight Sketchers box, and I'll be having a drawing process later to show these in action. So this is a set of professional or artist grade watercolor. It's more pigmented than your usual student grade, and this is a size comparison to my old artist field box set. As you can see, the Skechers box is pretty big compared to it. And then we shall unbox the set. So there you have the metal box, and then you have a Winsor & Newton brochure. And inside the brochure, there are color swatches of all of the colors in their line, as well as light fastness information and whether it's transparent or opaque. I'm trying to focus the camera there. Yeah, so there's all sorts of legends for the colors, and it's really handy if you're the type who wants to know the properties of certain colors before you try them out. I know some artists want their colors to be light fast. I want them to be light fast because in the event that I do sell my paintings, I prefer that it wouldn't fade if the buyer frames it. And here we have the metal box. So it's nice and black enamel, and then when you open it, there's an integrated mixing wells in the lid, and then there's a fold out mixing area. It's enameled. Has a lot of wells that prevent the water from just dripping down and spilling all over. And it comes with the 24 colors. And one thing that was different about my set was that instead of Viridian, mine had oxide of chromium. And I did a bit of research in the Winsor & Newton website, and it has a little disclaimer about the product information saying that, when supplies, it depends on the supply that they have. So yeah, I was a bit disappointed that I didn't get Viridian, but oxide of chromium is still a good color. As you can see on the side, because I pushed the pans are pushed to the side, there's actually room for one more half pan on each row. And the middle row, you can either store a long brush or you can store a few more half pans vertically. You can't store them the usual horizontal way. And then I'm going to do a bunch of color swatches. I've cut out the labels and then I've stuck them onto my watercolor sketchbook. I wanted to keep the information about the pigments on the swatches, like if it's transparent or semi-opaque or opaque, and what pigment name, and then the light fastness. With Winsor & Newton, a negative thing about these paints is that they have a tendency to overuse the word Winsor in their color names. Like instead of phthalo blue, they'd use Winsor blue, and it's kind of confusing if you're used to pigment names. Like I am used to pigment names. So if you're looking for certain colors and you can't find them because it's named Winsor. Yeah, that's one thing to be wary of. But these paints are very, very pigmented. Like, I'm swatching them, not really light, but it's not their most opaque, and the colors are still very bright and vibrant. And there's good variety in this set. You get warm and cool versions of each primary. And you get a bunch of natural looking greens, which I really like. And you have very versatile earths. You have the raw sienna, burnt sienna, raw umber, and burnt umber. And they don't just give you ivory black, they also give you Payne's gray. I find that Payne's gray is a really good alternative to ivory black because sometimes ivory black can look really harsh. The colors are very pigmented, and all of the colors in this set are light fast. So it's really good if you plan on selling your paintings or if you want to display them on a frame, because they won't fade for even if you leave them out in the sun for a few years. So yeah, those are my swatches. I'll have them on my Instagram account. The link to my Instagram account is below in the description if you want to check it out. It's a bit filtered, but yeah, I try to keep the colors closer. Because my camera doesn't really do justice to these colors and how vibrant they are. They're just amazing. And now I'm going to have the demo for the watercolor. So I drew in an image of Archer from Fate's Day Night. I'm glazing over the background with quinacridone gold. It's a color that's not included in the set, but I own it and it's really good. It's also by Winsor & Newton. I just wet the paper and I splatter it all over, wet and wet technique, because and then I also start blocking in the colors of the character. I don't really do a lot of detail at first. I like to skim over all of the parts of the painting. I'm using the Winsor Newton colors from the set. Basically, the only color that I used that wasn't from the set was the quinacridone gold base, and then the rest are the set. Even though the set had 24 colors included, I still had to mix a lot. Well, it's personal preference. You can use the colors without mixing beforehand. There's a lot of variety, but I find that using the colors straight from the pan kind of looks unnatural sometimes. So I want to tone down a few colors, make it look more natural. Like for the gears, I'm not using just a gray. I mixed in a burnt umber and then a burnt sienna and ultramarine and indigo. Because I wanted the gears to have a greenish, grayish tint. This is where having a large variety of colors comes in handy. Because if you can play that to your advantage, you can learn how to mix different colors to achieve what kind of colors you want. Like if you want a greenish gray or a purplish gray. I'll get into that more later. I don't darken things up really quickly because it's easier to correct mistakes when they're still light and you can try out a bunch of stuff. I'm just darkening the skin more to add shadow. For the skin's shadow, I actually mixed in a bit of burnt umber and dioxazine purple or Winsor violet in the set. Because I wanted the character to have a bit of a purplish tint to it to contrast with the yellow background. Yellow and purple complement each other and it makes the purple kind of pop out. I'm using Arches rough 300 GSM watercolor paper, and I find a rough paper is really nice if you want your piece to have a kind of gritty texture. So that worked to my advantage in this piece. I'm using a variety of brushes. Like here I'm using a water brush because my water brush is a very fine tip. It's the Zig Detailer tip. And it doesn't, like the tip stays for more than my other brushes. So that's why I'm using it. But I like to use natural brushes better. So yeah, going back to the watercolor, I'm slowly starting to darken parts of the painting now. Trying to add more detail. And the paints are really good because they're so pigmented. You could use so little of them at the start when you're just blocking in the basic shapes. You can use just a few of the paint and then so much water and then the paint will still be seen. It means the paint is really good quality because if it's not pigmented, it'll water down really easily, and when it's at full strength, it's not even that strong. So it's a really good idea to invest in pigmented paint. And I noticed that when I was working that some colors re-wet more easily, but this is a characteristic depending on the pigment. Like Winsor Violet re-wetted very well, but some of the earths didn't re-wet as readily. It's just something that's characteristic of pigments. And also what I liked about this set was it contained a lot of single pigment paints. Single pigment paints, they're brighter and I feel like they last longer than mixed pigments or convenience mixtures. But of course, the convenience mixtures are still handy to have along, especially for colors you use often like skin tones. And for the background, I'm adding in a bunch of burnt umber and I'm actually putting in Winsor Violet in the really dark portions because the violet desaturates the yellow and it ties in with the purple shadowness of Archer. I'm slowly starting to add details. My camera doesn't really do justice to the colors of this painting. Like, the shadow of the skin wasn't really that dark. But I'll have a link to the final image in the description below, just so you can see how the color looks. It's actually really, really nice. My camera just didn't do enough justice to it. Yeah. So, do you really need all 24 colors? So, you don't actually need all the 24 colors because with watercolor, I think you don't, like, less is more. Like, you could the minimum I'd say you could use like 3 primary colors and then you'd be good. You can mix almost any color out of it. But having those 24 colors is really convenient if you want to get a lot of varied shades and you don't like to do a lot of mixing. Like, I don't like to do a lot of mixing personally. I still had to do a lot of mixing, but it was really nice to have a violet and to have different browns available, because if not, I have to mix the violets and the browns first, and then it's really difficult. So are these worth the money? They're absolutely worth the money. They're very pigmented, they go very far. They're just real value for your money. They're just a bit pricey though. So, if you're starting out and you're not sure if you'll really like painting, I don't really recommend that you get this as your first set, because it's really pricey. And if you're not sure you'll love it, it might end up unused. If you've been painting for some time and then you're looking to upgrade your painting set, this is absolutely worth it. The colors will last you a really long time because a little goes a long way. And Winsor & Newton paint are really good quality. It's probably one of my favorite paint. Really nice, reliable, and the paint performs really well. And it won't fade if exposed to light because the colors in the set are light fast. So yeah, if you display a painting or somebody or your client displays it, it won't fade really easily. A tip for these watercolors is to use good paper, because you can have good quality watercolors but you'll still get subpar results if you use bad paper. These colors are really pigmented, but it's important to use good heavy paper to get the effects you want and to use a lot of water. I recommend 140 pound and 300 GSM paper. A bit of cons. Most of my cons are about the packaging really, not the paint. The packaging is great. I love the metal box, but be warned that the paint beads up in the mixing areas. I'm not sure if you can scrub it and prepare. That's just my observation, because the surface is really smooth. The paint doesn't really flow as well. That's why in the video I use ceramic bowls to mix instead. And then the pans kind of slide around a lot. So if you feel uncomfortable about that, you should secure the pans with some glue tack or some magnetic tape. That said, those are really small cons about the packaging, and the paint quality itself is great and the packaging is not bad, just has a few issues. So the Winsor & Newton Professional Watercolor Lightweight Sketchers box set of 24 is really nice. I'd recommend it. It's a really good quality product. And as you can see at the end, I'm just touching up on the gears. I lightly scrape over watercolor pencil to take advantage of the rough texture of the paper. See, that's why it's important to choose good paper to get the effect you want. If you want a rougher, grittier texture like in this image, you use a rougher paper. And if you want really smooth, marker looking results, use hot press paper. For something between cold press paper. But yeah, this product is really nice. And just a disclaimer, I'm not sponsored by Winsor & Newton anyway. I bought this product myself and I've been wanting to get it for some time and I really like it. So if you're interested, go check it out. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching!